Okay, our topic for today is gonna be about ear training. In ear training, you will be learning how to listen to the beat and how can you count it. Now, is it an important skill? Yes, it is an important skill because when you are going to the industry or when you are working with your clients and the musicians, you are expected that you are able to hear to the rhythm. And then you may also need to set up the tempo when you are doing the recording and etc. Let's take a look on the screen. Over here, you will see a few types of rhythmic pattern. Now, for the rhythmic pattern, we already cover in the lecture that talks just about rhythmic. You know that rhythm is divided into like different values. They have whole notes, half note, quarter notes, 8 notes, 16 notes, and 32 notes, also 64th notes. However, the one that we are going to use most of the time is the whole note, half note, quarter notes, 8 note, and 16 notes. Now we have a few types of like rhythmic patterns. Then we will try to practice this. How can we practice this? Basically, you see on the different kind of notations. Then you're gonna do the clappings. Now over here, you can see the number 1 is 4/4. So what does 4/4 means? There are 4 quarter notes in a bar, right? So we have, this is 1 bar, and this is like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have a rest over here. So when you see the sign of the rest, what do you have to do? You rest, means you don't need to play, okay? Now, in order for you to be able to practice for this one, of course, we need something that is able to keep the tempo. What usually people use to maintain the tempo, there's a tool called as a metronome. So metronome is a device that used to keep the tempo. Let me show you the picture of metronome. Now, metronome itself is divided into 2 types of metronome. Now, analog metronome, basically you need to turn in order to be able to have the metronome to move. Because this is an analog metronome, so it's not possible for you to identify the speed because the speed, everything is already predetermined. However, if you use digital metronome looks like this. Now, digital metronome, the good thing is you can adjust the tempo up to 1 point. So for example, you want to have the speed like maybe 67, you can do it. Now from 67, you want to adjust just by 1 point to 68, you can do it. Now in analog metronome, it's not possible because the speed is already predetermined. So for example, if let's say the metronome already show like 64, the next speed is 68, then you cannot adjust become like 65, 66, 67. It's just not possible because it's not there. So there's a plus and there's a minus for each item. Another good things about the digital metronome is you can use headphone. So for example, if let's say you are like practicing at home, okay, when you practice at home with the metronome, the analog metronome, of course, it's gonna be sounds loud. Okay, there's no way that you can reduce the sound. But with the digital metronome, you can use a headphone or earpiece inside the metronome, and then you can also adjust the level of the metronome. What is the downside of using the digital metronome? Digital metronome, most of the time, it requires battery. So that means you need to change the battery regularly. Some of the digital metronome, they also actually come with the portable power, so which is you can connect to the electrical outlet. And of course, if let's say you want to connect to the electrical outlet, you need to ensure that you have electrical outlet over there, and also the cable of the power is long enough. Otherwise, you must use like some extension. Now, which one is better? There's no like right or wrong because both is also good. Sometimes as a musicians, because they need a lot of the metronome sound, and also they want to listen to the piano sound, so a lot of them, they actually prefer the analog metronome. And if let's say in the certain situations that maybe you are staying in the HDB or whatsoever apartment, you cannot really disturb other people, or maybe you don't want to other people to hear to the metronome, then you can use the digital metronome. Now let's go back to the patterns. We're gonna do some practice. So what am I going to do is we're gonna set a metronome. Of course, in here we are not going to use an analog metronome. Okay, we are going to use a digital metronome. Now the digital metronome itself, if you look at the screen, actually is a lot of online digital metronome available everywhere, and it's free. You don't need to pay. Now you go to Google. When you type metronome, then you can see like different kind of metronome. Now over here, we are going to use one of the metronome that actually provided by Google. So you see, I click the minus sign the speed will reduce. When I click the plus sign, the speed will increase. Now this is the playback button. You can hear once I click the playback button, then the metronome will play. Now, each click that you are hearing now is actually represent 1 beat. So for example, if you need to hold a whole note for 4 beats, you must hear 4 tick, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Understand? Okay. Now, if let's say the note is a half note, so you are going to hold the note for 2 beats. For example, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, if let's say the note is 1 beat, so every tick is represented by an 8th note. So this is how it sounds: 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Now, if let's say just now it should be like the quarter notes. If let's say the note is 8 notes, so it means 1 beat is 2 notes. Okay, this is example: 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Now, if let's say the note is like 16 beats, so in 1 beat there are 4 notes. This is how it sounds: 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay. Now let's try to practice with the metronome. So we have a few kind of like rhythm patterns. When you listen to the metronome, of course you need a cue. So usually how people did is they use maybe like 2 bars cue. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, clap. Then you start to clap. Okay, now we are going to try. Let's see whether you can do it or not. Now let's start slow. So we start from 60. Now you can hear the metronome sound, and this is the beat number 1. Are you ready? Let's try to clap together. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, go. Repeat one more time. Okay, very good. So that's for number 1. It's not difficult, right? It's quite easy, quite simple. And also because the tempo is slow, so it's possible for you to capture and to follow everything correctly. Now let's move to number 2. Okay, so same thing for number 2. We're gonna repeat twice, and then we stop for a while, then we move to number 3. Okay, now let's give 2 bars counting. This is number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, claps. Repeat one more time. Let's try number 3. Same thing, it's gonna be like 2 bars counting. One, 2, 3, go. Repeat one more time. Okay, very good. Now let's try number 4. Now number 4, if you see here, we start to have 8 notes. So 8 notes means one beat you need to clap 2 notes. Okay, now let's give a cue. So it's gonna be like 2 bars counting. 1, 2, 3, go. Repeat one more time. Okay, very good. Now let's try number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat again. Okay, very good. Now let's try number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat again. Okay, very good. Now, if you notice, you have a tendency to move faster, right, than the metronome. So when you are like performing with people, or maybe when you are doing the recording, it's important that to ensure that everybody is on the same tempo, on the same time. Because if someone, if let's say play a bit faster, then you can see it's like not everybody playing together. Some musicians maybe a little bit want to play a bit ahead. Maybe some people a little bit behind, so that's why people will say, wow, the music is not very tight, it's a little bit loose. Now let's try again number 7. Number 7, we have some variations, because you can see there's a dot over here, and also the rest, this is like 8 note rest, and then you see another variations, there's like 1 and the quarter notes, and then this is 1 and the 8 notes, and then this is like an 8 notes. Now this is 2 bars counting, number 7. Let's try one more time. Okay, now let's move on to number 8. So number 8, we have some variations. At the previous one, you see you start with the notes, but number 8, we start with the rests, and then the rest for this one, basically we start with the 8 note rests. Now this is number 8, 2 bars counting. Two, 3, 4. Repeat one more time. Okay, next let's move to number 9. Now number 9, we have slur over here. Actually this is Thai, this is not slur because the rhythmic pattern is the same. So when you see a Thai, what you need to do is from this note, like on the bar number 1, beat number 4 notes, move to the bar number 2, beat number 1 note. The bar number 2, beat number 1 note, you don't need to play. So basically you just need to hold it for half beat. Now let's try. This is number 9, 2 bars counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat again. Okay, now let's try number 10. Now number 10, you will start to see 16 notes. So it's also like with some variations between 8 note and 16 note. Now as I explained previously, for 16 notes, that means in one beat you must clap 4 times. Right? So it sounds like 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. Now for number 10, it's a variations between 8 notes and 16 notes. Now let's try. This is gonna be 2 bars counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat one more time. Okay, not easy, right? Because some of you hit on the rest. Basically, when you see the rest, shouldn't play anything. Okay. Now let's try number 11. So number 11 is a variations between 8 notes and 16 notes, and also some of the quarter notes rest. Okay, this is 2 bars counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat again. Okay, it's getting harder, right? We can hear actually not everybody can play synchronized with one another. Now let's take a look on bar number 12. So number 12, we have more different variations. So we have 8 notes rest, we have 8 notes, we have 16 notes. Now let's try number 12. This is 2 bars counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat one more time. Okay, now let's move to number 13. Number 13 is a little bit different because number 13 we have triplet. So what does the triplet means? That means in one beat you have 3 notes. The triplets for here is more to the 8 note triplets. So instead of having like one beat 4 notes, for the triplets, for the eighth note triplet is 1 beat 3 notes. So it's gonna be like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. And this is 2 bars counting. One, two, three, four. Let's try one more time. Now let's move on to number 14. Number 14, we also have some variations. This one is between quarter notes rest and also eighth notes and also eighth note triplet. This is 2 bars counting. One, two, three, four. One more time. Okay, now last one is number 15. Let's try. This is 2 bars counting. One, two, three, four. One more time. We are going to talk further about critical listening. When we are talking about critical listening, the question is what to listen for. Now, critical listening is going to be divided into 3 different sections. For these sections, basically, you just focus on the instrumentations and also repetition and variations. Now, as you can see on the screen, for instrumentations, you will answer how many instruments or parts that has been used. Do they all play at the same time? What are the roles of the instruments? Is it melody, counter melody, accompaniment, harmony or doubling? Is it a rhythmic, melodic or chordal instrument? Whether this is more to the bass or treble. Now for the repetition, you will be answering whether are there repetitions, are there variations. When we talk about repetitions, it means like does it repeat the thematic, which means the theme or maybe the rhythmic or melody and etc. And are there variations, basically means any changes on the dynamic, whether it is sounds louder or softer on the tempo, whether it is faster or slower on the tonality, whether the sound is suddenly maybe getting like sharper or less sharp, maybe brighter or less brighter, and what is the form or structure, and also how did the music start and end. Now I'm gonna play the songs and then you will listen and then you will identify the instrumentations and whether it is played at the same time and what are the roles of the instruments. Now let's listen to the song number 1. So you will identify the instrumentations of this song. You listen to the song already. How many instruments? 2 instruments. So what are the instruments? Okay, piano and violin. Who agree with this? Okay, we have still agree. 2, 3. Who disagree with this? Okay, 1, 2. So which one you disagree? Okay, what's wrong with the violin? Is it a violin? So what is this? It's a cello, exactly. Okay. Now it sounds a little bit similar to violin, but how does the violin and cello difference in terms of sound? Violin usually sounds brighter and also sharper compared to the to cello. Okay. In this song, it's not a violin, it's cello. And if you see some cellists, depends of the way how they play. If let's say they play in the orchestra, maybe some of the note they don't really play too high. But if let's say they are featured as a soloist, usually they will play a very high note. And because the cello is playing very high note, so sometimes people might guess wrongly if they don't see the instrument and they always think it's a violin. Now this is cello. If you go to Google, you type cello, then you will see a lot of different kind of cello. Now cello itself is an acoustic instrument, and that means when you play with the bow, you hit the strings, then it will produce the sounds based on the physical instrument itself. Now how does the violin looks like? This is violin. So the size of the violin is smaller than cello. Okay, so when you play violin, usually you will put the violin on the shoulder. Okay, on the shoulder with the left hand, and then you play with the right hand. Now when you play cello, you cannot put the cello on your shoulder because it's too big. Okay, your shoulder might break. So what usually the cellists do is most of the time they will be sitting. Okay, they sit on the chair and then they will play with the bow. But in some performance, when let's say the cellist is like one of the feature, or maybe everybody just stand up, then there's a possibility you will see the cellist will play with standing as well. But for sure, the cellist must put cello on the floor. Okay, it cannot put on the shoulder. Okay, now let's take a look the picture of piano. So this is piano. Piano itself in the big category is divided into 2. It can be like electric piano or acoustic piano. Now acoustic piano itself is divided into 2 as well. It can be like upright piano, or it can be also grand piano. Upright piano is usually like home use. Okay, it's just like a bit more like square, like box. However, in a lot of people, when they have like more better financial, then they can also afford like the like grand piano. Now grand piano, it looks more grand because it's like really for the concert. They have a few sizes. They have like, if let's say in the big concert hall, they can have a grand piano up to 3 meters length. Okay, so how does it different between acoustic piano and digital piano? Acoustic piano, you need to do maintenance. Okay, so like usually every 6 months or we have to tune. But if let's say you are working at the big concert hall or maybe like institutions, usually they tune the piano every day. Now for the electrical piano, you don't need to tune because it requires electric. However, some people, they say they prefer acoustic piano because the sound is more natural compared to the electrical piano. But of course, they also have a plus and minus. Now, the good things about the digital piano is you can always adjust the volume. So if let's say you are playing in the middle of the night, okay, you don't want to disturb other people, then you can just make the sound softer. Or let's say you want to use a headphone, then how loud you play, nobody will be able to hear because it's only yourself you will be hearing from the headphone. Okay, now for acoustic piano, there's no way you can adjust the volume, right? When you play, it's basically the volume is based on how much power you put. If you hit the piano stronger, of course the sound will be louder. If you hit the piano softer, of course the sound will be softer. Okay, and also good thing about acoustic piano, you do not need any electrical power. That means you save electric, but depends on the conditions where you stay. If let's say you stay in the apartment, If let's say your neighbor doesn't mind for you to play very loud, then you can have an acoustic piano. If let's say the neighbor feel a little bit disturbed, then you have no choice, you need to use digital piano. In the past, when digital piano just come out in the industry, a lot of people not really go for the digital because they are still stick with acoustic. The acoustic sound, they say, is just nice, it's just beautiful. But along the way, because life changed, everything changed, there are more and more people staying in the like apartment or HDB, so no choice, they have to have a digital piano instead of the acoustic piano. And also the maintenance for acoustic piano is not cheap, because once you do a tuning, it can cost between $100 to $300 for tuning. Imagine if let's say you need to tune every day, so it costs a lot of money. Now in digital, you don't need to worry about the tuning. Now another good things about the digital piano is you can connect with a computer. For example, if let's say you are using any like sequencing software, maybe like Logic Pro, you can connect your digital piano to Logic Pro, and then whatever you play, then you can record in the computer. And also a lot of digital piano these days, they also included with the computer inside the machine itself. So when you do your performance, sometimes you want to listen to it again, right? So when you record in the digital piano, after you record, you play back, you can hear it again. Now another good thing about digital piano as well is besides having a digital piano sound, you can use different kind of sound. For example, you want to use maybe a organ sound, you want to use a trumpet sound, or maybe you want to use strings or any kind of different sounds. Digital piano able to do it. Unfortunately, acoustic piano is not possible because acoustic only have one sound, which is acoustic piano. Okay, let's go back again to the first song. So do they all play at the same time? Yes or no? Which one play first or which one play later, or maybe it's just like almost the same? Okay, if you listen again, at the intro, did you hear something play first? Piano play first. Now after the piano plays, what comes? The cello comes later. Now, what's the difference in terms of note that the piano played and the cello played? What's the difference? The piano, does it play the melody of the song? No. Who played the melody? Cello. Okay. So we know cello play melody, piano plays accompaniment. Very good. So an instrument, as you can see over here, an instrument can play accompaniment, it also can play melody. Now for piano, because it has like 88 keys, so piano can be considered like very flexible. It can play accompaniment. Accompaniment means it doesn't really play the melody, but it's basically play like different kind of notes or harmony to support the melody, because the purpose is to accompany. Okay. Now for cello itself, cello usually they play like the melody or maybe some of the harmony. If let's say you see the cellist play maybe in a small ensemble or maybe in the orchestra, they will have the certain note. Maybe they play single note, maybe like double note, or maybe even more to support the main melody. Now let's listen to the second one. Okay, for the second song, so how many instruments? 2 instruments. What are they? Piano and cello. Very good. Now if you still remember the first songs, this one sounds similar, right? The cello with, on the song 1 and song 2. Now do they play all at the same time? Yes. So what's the difference between the notes that is play by piano and also play by cello? Okay, piano louder, cello louder. What else? Yeah, talking about the dynamic, right? Now, in terms of the melody, you hear the melody of the piano, you hear the melody of the cello. Is there any difference? Okay, cello come after piano. So that means piano play first, right? But what's the difference in terms of the melody that played by piano compared to cello? What's the difference? Yes, okay, the octave is lower. Which one is lower? The piano octave is lower or the cello octave is lower? How do you know? Yeah. Okay, well, maybe you will say this is like lower, but actually, if you listen carefully between the melody they play by piano and cello, actually it's no difference, right? It's the same, right? So what do you call this when the melody is the same? However, the difference is the piano play first and then the cello play after, but it's just following. So what do you call this? No, it's not dubbing. This is we call as counter melody. Yeah. So this is one of the technique that also you will find a lot in the real music, that maybe one instrument they play this melody and then suddenly another instrument will play exactly the same. Okay, now this technique we call it a counter melody. Sometimes also people call like question and answer. And also if you listen to the dynamic, okay, for the classical music, how does the dynamic sound? Does it sound like consistently from the beginning to the end, or there's like any movement, maybe a bit louder, then a bit softer, then louder and softer? Louder and softer. So the dynamic is not consistent, it's usually always changing. How does it difference compare to the popular music? Any difference? Now, popular music, usually most of the time, the dynamic is steady, right? And even like getting louder, you don't hear like too much changes, like suddenly soft or suddenly loud. Most of the time, it's always like steady from the beginning to the end. Either steady or maybe it's getting a bit louder or even more loud. This is song number What are the instruments for this song? Okay, guitar. What kind of guitar? Okay, this is electric. Then what else? Drums. Okay. What else? That's all? Voice. Okay. Sometimes people also say vocals, right? Okay, what else? Bass. What kind of bass? This is electric bass. What else? Keys. Very good. Anything else? Now, sometimes for keys, people say a synthesizer. That's all? Okay, I think you can identify the instrumentation. So you can hear there's like guitar. Maybe it's not only like electric. I think it's also like have like some for guitar and then drums, voice. Now the voice itself, they have a lead voice, okay? And also they have like background vocal. Now they have electric bass, they have keys or synths, and also, yeah, I think that's all. Now, this one you need to ensure that you can identify. Why? Because you are going to have a written test, and also, actually, it's like more to the listening test. Now, during the listening test, we're gonna play a song for you, so you will identify what are the instrumentations. Now, let's take a look the photo of guitar. Now, guitar itself is divided into two. There's like electric guitar, there's acoustic guitar. Now, when you go to Google, you type guitar, you will see like it's a mixture between acoustic and electric. Now, this is the sample of acoustic guitar. Acoustic guitar itself is divided into two. You will see the acoustic guitar that usually people play for the classical music, which is the strings made from nylon. And for the popular music, most of the time people play folk guitar. Now folk guitar, the string is not nylon, but it's more to the steel. When you use classical music, play for in the popular music, it doesn't really match the color of the song. And also the other way around, maybe when you play like folk guitar, you play classical music, it doesn't really match. Now, electric guitar itself is divided into two. One is the electric guitar, one is like electric bass. Standard electric guitar, it has 6 strings, and also it has like different kind of brand. Now, bass guitar, most of the time, the string is just 4. Sometimes if you see a bigger series of electric bass, you may see like 5 strings, and also like the biggest is like 6 strings. Now, actually all of these instruments, you can go to Google to take a look if you are not very sure how it looks like. Now, let's move on to the song. right away stop, or it's like getting softer and softer and softer? Which one? Softer and softer. What do you call it? This is we call as fade. Okay, but this one is fade out. Now fade, there are two types of fade. There's fade in, there's fade out. Fade out means it's like gradually getting softer. Fade in is like gradually like getting louder. Okay. Now you need to be able to identify the song form. Why? Because you're gonna be tested on this. So we are going to play a song for you. Then you listen. Then you identify the song form. You identify the instrumentations. Now, what are the songs that you can use to practice? Basically, you can play like any kind of songs at home, and then you just like practice, identify which one is the intro, the verse, the chorus, and what are the instrumentations.